The world is still in shock a week after a 28-year-old Australian national gunned down 50 people at two mosques in the city of Christchurch. Although thousands of miles away from New Zealand, people across the United States share their thoughts about this hate crime that upset the world and hope this does not desensitize people to violence and hatred. Take a look.
It's hard to make sense of it. Is it a false flag operation? Is it just disgruntled individuals acting on their own? It's really hard to say. It truly is a tragedy for all those who are involved. It goes to show that you don't know where you're going to be safe at in today's world with all the things going on. When people are gathered together in large groups like that, there needs to be some kind of security to identify individuals like that who may try to gain entrance. It looks like the guy was able to gain entrance real easily to the mosque, and he was obviously armed. Doors being locked, to keep them out. Simple things like that.
Such acts of violence must be condemned, and it must be ensured that such a way of expression will not be tolerated. The details of the act point towards a deep hatred and cannot be ignored by saying that these people have serious problems.
Very surprised, but at the same time not, because surprised that it's happened in New Zealand, not surprised because it's been happening a lot. It's kind of becoming like not everyday thing, but it's almost like it's normal, but it shouldn't be normal because it's just a religion. And even if someone has something against it, there's other ways to do it besides going and shooting 50 people, Right. There's other ways to deal with your issues or your hate or your problems or your conflict with another religion. There's other ways than that.
You think the last place that an act of violence, of terrorism like this would happen is to be in a mosque, a place of worship. But it did. And for me, that hits close to home. So, now we just got to be more vigilant whenever we go about our normal everyday business, whenever we go to church.
I feel really bad about it, knowing how extremely violent it was, and it just shows that racism is prominent in the world nowadays. And to avoid these events happening in our neighborhood is to not let racism prosper. And we should have activities that would help each race or ethnicity to socialize and communicate with one another so we can destroy the boundaries that separate humanity.
When I first heard of the mass shooting in a mosque in New Zealand, I felt so upset, especially when I see innocent people getting killed because of these hate crimes. People are killing other people because of hatred, and this is happening almost every day around the world. One of the ways to help the community is to be better educated how to react in emergency situations, like in the case of an active shooter. Here in Corpus Christi, the police department offers free seminar on active shooter to schools, to churches, and to local organizations. And being prepared and knowing what to do in case there will be an active shooter, will be able to better react, protect ourselves, our families, especially our children.
I think it was a tragedy. It's a sad event that occurred with a lot of unnecessary loss of human life. Well, I think two things. One is education. So to know that just because someone is Muslim or a different religion, that it doesn't necessarily mean that someone is violent, or it doesn't mean that they're a threat. Mm-hmm. So education, number one. Number two, I think that there should be better background checks done as far as with gun control or with selling firearms, just to make sure that someone is mentally stable enough to handle the responsibility of owning a firearm.
I think it's terribly sad and unfortunate that these things have to happen. There's a lot of not enough communication, education, and understanding with people in the world.
Yeah.
My family, my grandparents and my parents went through World War II as Japanese Americans in this country, and they were interned. So I kind of look at it as the same kind of idea. You know, it's a separatist, racist, kind of situation.
I think in our society we have a very important role, and we need to be more vigilant. We need to reinforce certain rules that we have in our school systems. I feel helpless and I feel sad. Imagine the tragedy that a lot of families are passing through. Made me very emotional and very, very sad about it. What I can do in order to avoid tragedies like this happening in our neighborhoods, I believe this effort that it needs to be not just one size. Our governments are putting or are trying to put regulations to sell weapons.
And we need to address every single problem we face from a local level. The common thread with regard to all of these individuals who committed these horrific acts of violence is they had nowhere to go but down the road to trouble. And so what we need to do is to make sure that at a young age, and when I say we, I'm talking about a partnership between parents and government and the churches to come together to make sure they have a solid faith-based foundation, and then you won't see these problems as we see them today.
When we come back, in the Antofagasta Desert, Chileans drink seawater. And plastic threatens life in Galapagos. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will return shortly.